Eric, let's talk automation.
Let's do that, Dave.
All right. So we got to start with the basics. What is it?
So in the classical sense, when we're talking about automation, we're talking about computerization, mechanization, and industrialization, all of the Asians, right?
Right.
In the IT world, in the MSP world specifically, we're talking about automating all of the IT admin processes so that we can reduce errors and do all those things that the processing allows you to gain.
Gotcha. Okay. So we're gonna systemize a bunch of stuff that people would normally do. Why?
Because it gains efficiencies, right? So when those increases in efficiencies turn into profitabilities, it increases the speed of delivery of the IT services, which increases their capacity to do more with the same number of people and equipment that they have.
Right.
It also allows you to reduce the number of errors and omissions by automating all of these processes, which then drives a better customer experience and reduces the churn that we were talking about earlier.
Gotcha. So what we're doing here is we're making people work better. And because we know an MSP's most expensive asset is their people. It's not the technologies, but in fact, it's the people. So we're going to focus on giving them tools to do better, do more, and be more efficient, right? So, okay, it sounds really easy, right? When we talk about it from that sense, how do we get there? Like, what's the path look like?
Well, there's kind of a maturity level to doing automation, right? There's certain steps, there's a pathway that we want to take when we're starting to do automation as an MSP.
Okay.
We want to start out with all of the lists that we have, all of those regular things that we do to customers' computers in order to keep them running smoothly. So we want to take those checklists, let's call them, and convert those into automations that we do through our RMM platform.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're taking the policies and procedures, things we might write down, we're going to make those into systemized versions in the platform, right?
Absolutely.
Gotcha. So that's kind of like the first step in the journey.
First step.
Okay. Once we do that, so we go through our business, we pull out all the checklists, and we start making those into, executable scripts or into policies or whatever the right way of doing it is.
Yep.
Well, then what?
Well, then the next step is take that one, more further and get a list of those things when you have something that's reactionary, right? Mm-hmm. When you have a reaction like a help desk ticket or a monitoring alert, taking those things where you have scheduled, I've got to do step 1, 2, and 3 to actually remediate that issue or, do whatever it is for the customer, for the help desk ticket. Then what you want to do is take those things and just like you did with your checklists, create automations out of those so the technician can click on one button instead of 10.
Okay, gotcha. So
to solve the same problem.
That makes sense. So how far can we go with this?
Well, so that's interesting because the next step is then self-healing.
Okay.
What we want to do is take those monitoring alerts and those help desk tickets and the possibility of being able to automate those so that a technician never even has to click that one button. So if a hard drive fills up, it automatically goes out and runs a clean temp files or whatever it is to automatically remediate that.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've been talking a lot in this context then about individual sort of tasks. I would think it would scale out to bigger things like projects, right? You can move to full-on projects?
Yes, so just like your checklist for your routine maintenance, your checklist for your projects as well. Now, sometimes with projects, what you'll do is you'll have, projects aren't always the same thing, right? So what you'll do is you'll create modules of automation that when you have a specific project, you can go in and then you can plug those modules in to create that project automation.
So let's get into some concrete examples. Like what are some of those most tedious but critical proactive tasks we could start with?
So what you want to do is you want to look at those critical tasks, right? So all of your patch management, all of your, running periodic scans of a disk to make sure there are no errors. All of those things you want to schedule out in a maintenance program that you're then going to automate.
Gotcha. So it's a lot of the things that I would promise in my managed services in the packages that I've sold. These are the bits that I could focus on making sure that they're automated, right? What can we do with things like RMM alerts? Are there most frequent ones to focus on?
So yeah, I mean, all of the things, and really you're data-driven at that point, right? Because your situation may be different from mine.
Sure.
So what you want to do is actually go through your RMM solution and pick out what's your most current, or your most active alerts are, and then go through those and create automations for each one.
So it makes sense as a starting point to take a look at my most active alerts or my most active tickets that come in and figure out ways of automating those, right?
Absolutely. Help desk tickets are a great choice because you have data on that. You know what the topics of your different help desk tickets are. You know which ones recur more often, and therefore you can build automations to match those, greatly increasing your efficiencies by attacking the ones that happen more often faster.
Yeah, I hear from some customers that a lot of them will look and say, like, if I have to do it twice, that's a task that's getting automated, right?
Right. One of our automation experts said it the other day. Yeah, if you have to, do something once, no big deal. Twice, still not a big deal. But if you have to do it a third time, you really need to look at automating it.
That makes a lot of sense. So one of the things we often talk a lot about is market disruptions, right? We look at markets for examples of ways so we can understand why it's happened. Is there one that comes to mind, that a company that used automation that you really find did a really good job with it that has disrupted their market?
So there's several, right? But the one I like best is Netflix.
Okay.
They took, a traditional market of people having to go to movies, schedule time to watch TV at a particular time that the network wanted to put a program on, or even, when it evolved a little bit, going to the movie store to, rent a movie and be able to watch it at home. But with Netflix, all of that is gone, right? They've automated every piece of the system so that you just sit down in front of your TV and watch whatever you want.
Gotcha. So that's a big company example. A lot of people go, I'm not Netflix. What do you take away for a typical MSP or a smaller organization to take away from that example?
So as the MSP, what you're trying to do is you're trying to remove all of the friction for your customer, right? They want to be able to use their computer, or really their data, not just their computer. They want to use their data everywhere possible, whenever possible.
Okay.
Whether it's on their laptop, their desktop, their mobile device, a tablet, whatever. You're making it so they can do their work that they've contracted that equipment to do in order to move forward.
Gotcha. So we're looking for specific examples of things in our customers' businesses that we can take the pain away from through automation.
Right. And our side of the automation as IT providers is we're just making it as smooth as possible so they can jump from device to device, not have to worry about the maintenance on that device or what happens when something fails. Okay. It automatically gets fixed.
Gotcha. So you've talked about a couple of different categories at times. What do you think of are the different types of automation that an MSP could utilize?
So we've talked about them a little bit, so far. So reactive, is one of the first ones. That's where you get a help desk ticket, right, and you want to automate as much of that as possible. Gotcha. Even to going to your PSA solution and making sure that an automated response goes out so that the customer feels heard. Gotcha. Those types of touches as well.
So these are the ones where we're responding to a customer. Customer raises their hand, says, I have a need, and I want to make sure that I can respond in an automated fashion rather than having to do it manually, right?
Correct.
Okay. So beyond that, what's beyond reactive?
So proactive, obviously, and that's your checklists again. It's making sure that routine maintenance gets done, or if there's a longer list of things that needs to be done for a remediation that a tech would have to do, they can click one button instead of 5.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's obviously reactive, proactive. I assume we can go beyond that even more, right? Because we can probably have the machines look at themselves. Isn't that true?
That's true, because that's what the RMM platforms do. That's what the monitoring is for, right?
Okay.
The monitoring is in place to tell you when something goes wrong. So that's an automation in itself, right?
Right.
You're finding out when things are going wrong before they actually have a catastrophic failure. Mm-hmm. But add on top of that what we call self-healing, and now the machines have the ability to fix themselves.
Okay, so essentially what's happening, the machine raises its own hand saying, I have an error. You've then put in place the automation to repair that error because you know how to fix it, and it fixes and makes it go on its own, right?
Right.
Okay, so where's it going beyond that? Where do we see automation moving with the products in general?
So obviously, as software evolves, right, we're getting into these devices being able to use machine learning and AI and predictive analysis to, instead of waiting for it to fail, The predictive analysis will let us go, oh, we think that's going to fail. Let's run this automation against it to go ahead and fix it ahead of time.
Okay.
With machine learning and AI, we can actually go a step further with that and have the machine get smarter and smarter every time something happens and have it learn from that.
So we're making assumptions about what's going to happen. We're predicting what's going to happen and responding ahead of time, right?
Right.
Okay, gotcha. So why do you want to do this? It sounds like, this is a lot to do. What's the why here?
So again, it's about technician time, number one. If your technicians are tied up doing all of these menial tasks, they're not going to be working on the really hard stuff, the important stuff. Also, the more stuff that you have technicians do that's repetitive and boring, the less it's going to get done well, the more errors you're going to have.
So we've talked a lot about automation. We've made it sound super simple. How does somebody get started?
So the way to get started is we have a bunch of training available. So through the MSP Institute, you can go ahead and do some self-paced training there.
Okay.
We also run periodic online automation boot camps for both the RMM and N-central platforms that allow you to get your hands dirty and actually go through building some of these automations in an instructor-led setting.
Gotcha. And it's like eating an elephant one step at a time.
That's right.